roasted Brussels sprouts with an apple cider vinegar honey glaze. How amazingly delicious does that sound? Sally that girl in the kitchen. Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Sally That Girl in the Kitchen. In today's episode, I'm going to teach you how to make roasted Brussels sprouts with an apple cider vinegar honey glaze. They are so good. So if you love Brussels sprouts, roasting them the way I'm going to do today is going to bring out their flavor and their crispiness, and then we're going to combine them with this delicious glaze that we're going to make with some vinegar and honey, and they are going to be spectacular. They are going to be your new favorite side. So I'm super excited to teach you how to make them. So let's not wait another second and let's get started. For the apple cider vinegar honey glaze, you will need a half a cup of honey and 6 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. And for the roasted Brussels sprouts, you will need 2 pounds of Brussels sprouts, 2 teaspoons of onion powder, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, fresh ground pink Himalayan salt with rosemary to taste. I will attach the link to my rosemary infused pink Himalayan salt video in the description of this video. But as an alternative, you can just use some loose pink Himalayan salt and some dried rosemary instead. But trust me, the ground up stuff is spectacular. You'll also need fresh ground black pepper to taste and a 1/4 cup of extra virgin olive oil plus some more for drizzling. You will also need a cutting board and a knife, a serving spoon, a wet measuring cup, some measuring spoons, a large bowl and plenty of paper towel, a large tray with sides such as a baking tray, and some aluminum foil to wrap it with for easy cleanup. That of course is optional. And you'll need some oven mitts and a small saucepan to make our glaze. And finally, you will need a colander. So now that we have all of our ingredients and tools together, let's get started. So the first thing you're going to want to do is place your colander in the sink and add your beautiful fresh Brussels sprouts. Then I just turn on my cool water and I give them all a really good rinse. We just want to rinse these Brussels sprouts really well. So now I line a large bowl with some paper towel and I add my Brussels sprouts right on top of that paper towel. And basically the idea is we just want to dry these, but in order for them to not roll onto the floor off of my counter, I like to start in a bowl so that I can control the Brussels sprouts and avoid them rolling right off. And then I just dry them really well, just pat them down a little bit with some paper towel. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just remove them from the bowl after I've given them a nice pat down with plenty of paper towel. And I'm going to just lay out some paper towel on my counter and very carefully just lay the Brussels sprouts on top of that paper towel, and then just let them continue to air dry there for a little bit. So now we're going to move on to make our glaze. So we're going to add some apple cider vinegar into a small saucepan. And then right on top of the vinegar, we're going to add our honey. Now, this may seem like a very simple glaze. It's basically honey and vinegar, but the result that you're going to get when you're going to add these onto those roasted Brussels sprouts with the seasonings that we're going to give the Brussels sprouts is going to be an incredibly delicious combination. That mild and very pleasant acidity that we're going to be getting from that apple cider vinegar, and of course that delicious sweet note that we're going to be getting from the honey, is just fantastic when combined with those seasonings we're going to be putting on our Brussels sprouts. So we're going to turn our heat on to low because this is a small pan and it's going to get hot really, really quick. And you do not want to walk away. All you want to do is stir this until the ingredients combine and that honey completely melts down into the apple cider vinegar. And you're going to notice that very quickly, of course, depending on the heat of your stove, every stove works differently, the mixture is going to start to bubble up. So you have to be super careful. You have to continue to stir it. And if you notice that the heat is getting too hot, then of course you can turn the stove off for a second, let the heat calm down before turning it back on. But all you really want to do is cook this for 3 or 4 minutes. You want to see the liquid bubble. You want to just bring everything together. You want to make sure that some of that apple cider vinegar evaporates just a touch and just kind of thickens up just ever so slightly. But really what we want to do is just warm them, bring them together, make sure that the ingredients marry. So that's it. It's been about 4 minutes or so. Everything has combined. We can turn off our heat and there we have our delicious glaze. So now all we want to do is take this and we're going to take it off of the heat and just let it cool down. I do this first because I do want my glaze cool. So back to our Brussels sprouts. I have my cutting board, I have a large bowl, I have a knife, and my Brussels sprouts are dry enough at this point. They don't have to be perfectly dry, but you definitely don't want them soaking wet. And then all you're going to do is you're going to cut off the end, and you see those little leaves that fall off? We want those. I actually try to pull off a couple of leaves from each sprout because those are going to get really crispy in the oven and I just absolutely love them. So all I do is I grab my sprouts and I cut them in half and then I add them to my bowl and then I'm going to be discarding that little stem. We're not going to be using it in this recipe and then I'm just going to repeat the process for each Brussels sprout. Now, I will add, if your sprouts are small, like some of them are smaller than others, then you can leave some of them whole if you'd like. But I like cutting them in half because it gives them more surface area to crisp up and to brown up in the oven when we roast them. And I just absolutely love that. But of course, as I said, if you have some smaller ones, you want to leave the little ones whole, just cut off the stem and you can leave them whole, that's fine. Or you can just slice them down the middle the way I do here. So all we're going to do is do all of them. We're going to take all of those stems off. And as I said, it's important to have some loose leaves. You're going to see once we roast them that those leaves are going to be one of the best parts of this dish. So about now would be a good time to start preheating your oven. And we're going to want to put it on 425 degrees to be able to roast these delicious Brussels sprouts, and make sure you have a rack placed in the center. Now, all you want to do is just chop them all up, and then once you get them all in the bowl and they're ready to go, the rest is going to come together real quick. So all I do is set that aside, I clean up the discarded pieces, and now we're going to add all our yumminess into the Brussels sprouts. So we're going to start with our extra virgin olive oil. Then we're going to add our onion powder. This gives them tons of flavor. Then we're also going to add some garlic powder, also delicious. And so now what I'm going to do is I am going to grind up some fresh black pepper on top. I'm using tricolor peppercorns, but you can use black peppercorns. Either way is fine. And then this you're just going to do to taste. I like my black pepper ground up into larger pieces, and I like plenty of it, but this is totally up to you. You can grind it fine, you can use a little, or you can use a lot. It's really about personal preference, and I like to go a little heavy-handed on the ground pepper, but of course you do you. So now we're gonna move on to this delicious rosemary infused pink Himalayan salt. I have a video up on my channel showing you how I make this rosemary infused salt, and I'm going to be using it here in this recipe. But of course, if you don't have rosemary infused pink Himalayan salt on hand because I recognize not everyone does, then of course I'm going to show you that you can use as an option just some regular loose pink Himalayan salt and of course some rosemary. So if you don't have that made yet, then you can just sprinkle on some of this pink Himalayan salt and then any dried rosemary of good quality, just sprinkle some of that right on and then just grab your spoon and mix it all in. But I will attach how to make that delicious rosemary salt in the description of this video because you're going to want to use it on so many things, on all of your vegetables, fresh or roasted, on so many things as just a touch of finishing salt, even on potatoes or tater tots or fries or anything that you make fried or roasted. It's just an incredible finishing salt. So I've mixed it all in. I'm going to put that aside and I'm going to bring over my tray. And I'm using a tray, of course, with sides because of the olive oil when roasting. And then I've covered it in aluminum foil. It just makes my cleanup job so much easier. And now I make sure that all of the ingredients are super well combined. And I'm going to add all of these Brussels sprouts and all of those little loose leaves right onto my prepared tray. So then all you're going to want to do at this point is use your spoon to spread the Brussels sprouts out as much as you possibly can because you don't want the Brussels sprouts on top of each other because then what happens is they end up steaming and not roasting. So you do want to spread them out as well as you possibly can. And now, some people like to place the cut side of the Brussels sprout down because that gives that side plenty of color. But I like to do a little bit of a mix. I like some of them facing up, some of them facing down so that I get that beautiful golden color. So then I'm going to grab a little more extra virgin olive oil and all I do is give them all a final little drizzle on top of oil and then they're ready to go into my oven. Center rack, and then I'm going to set a 25-minute timer to allow them to roast. About halfway through, I go in and I kind of move them around a little, spread them out, make sure that they're getting even heat. And then after the full 25 minutes, they're ready and they're looking gorgeous. They smell so good. And look at those loose leaves that we have roasted and they're really crispy. They're almost like chips at this point. They are so delicious. That is truly one of my favorite parts of this recipe. And they are spectacular just as is. So I am going to add them into a beautiful serving dish. But if I were making this on a weeknight, I probably would have just left them right on that tray and finished them off right there. But of course, we want to make this look a little extra special. So I've taken them off of the tray and placed them in something just a little prettier for serving. Now, remember that delicious glaze? It's sitting here beautiful and ready to go. So what I do is this glaze is actually room temperature right now, and the Brussels sprouts are really hot because they just came out of the oven. So I like to have one of them hot and then the other one at room temperature, because if not, what you're going to end up doing is just steaming these Brussels sprouts. And we do want, especially those loose leaves, to just remain nice and crispy. So I will add that the best time to add the glaze is right before you're going to serve your Brussels sprouts, because that way they won't get mushy, you're not wilting them, and they're just ready to go to the table. And they are looking so good. They smell delicious. And honestly, if you're a fan of Brussels sprouts, you're going to love this recipe because it's simple, but it's so yummy. It's really delicious. So now, enough with the admiring. It's time to taste these guys. I really love these so much and I make them so often because I think that they're just such a delicious, yummy, healthy side, and everyone loves them. And they're just so special because they've got those delicious seasonings and that touch of acidity and sweetness. They're really just a delicious way to eat your vegetables. So look at how gorgeous these guys look. They've developed an incredible color. They're all roasty and yummy. And really those loose little leaves, look at that. It's crispy. It's almost like a chip. So delicious. Absolutely yummy. They are so, so good. They have the perfect balance of sweetness and of that delicious touch of acidity and just that delicious slight hint of rosemary. Just so incredibly good. They're so yummy. I could just sit here and eat a whole tray. They're super, super delicious. And eating vegetables like this is such a pleasure. You are not going to have to fight anyone to have their vegetables because they're just fun, crispy, yummy, and just roasty, delicious. So good. Perfect. So how totally appetizing do these guys look? They are so delicious. They're the perfect combination of moist and crispy, and then that glaze just brings them over the top. It really just brings out all of the beautiful flavors of those Brussels sprouts, and it makes them extra special. Trust me. No, better yet, don't trust me. You're gonna have to try and make this recipe yourself. And of course, if you've enjoyed today's recipe, don't forget to like, comment, and share. I really appreciate when you share my recipe, so thank you so much for doing that. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, don't forget to subscribe and to touch that little notification bell so that you get notified every time I put up a new and exciting recipe, which I do all of the time. And make sure to explore under my video tab because there are so many recipes for you to explore there, so don't miss out on those. And if you're not already following me on social media, you can follow me as Sally That Girl in the Kitchen on Facebook, Instagram, and on Pinterest. And you can find me as Sally That Girl FL on Twitter, Snapchat, and on TikTok. See you next time. Sally That Girl in the Kitchen.